Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Back Lot Banter. I'm your host Tanner Dykstra, joined by a special guest, Mr. Joe Wright. You've been on one other Backlog Banter video, I believe, but you're here today
Yes.
on
Yeah, I
Backlot
was
Banter.
didn't mean to interrupt my great host. I
That's
was
okay.
there a little while ago to rant about Cyberpunk, but here I am to be happy and talk about
Yes.
something we both really like. So I'm excited to delve into our thoughts about the latest release from A24, The Green Knight. Tanner, if
Yeah.
you want to do a little bit of the kind of discussion leading into the film and kind of what your thoughts are.
Well, yeah. This Green Knight, directed by David Lowery. We got some classic actors in there. We got Dev Patel. We got Alicia Vikander, Joel Edgerton in a surprise role. I had no idea that he was in it. But yeah, I really enjoyed this film. Joe, you feel the same way. But if you want to hear more film reviews, video game reviews, and all sorts of content, you should subscribe to Backlog Banter and give this video a like. Show your love for Mr. Joe right here.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
So how to begin with the Green Knight is obviously based on the classic Arthurian legend of
Mhm.
Sir Gawain and the Green Knight,
Yes.
where it takes pretty much. It's very accurate to the source material, though changing a little bit of a plot diagnostics here and there. Um, what to say about this movie is it's a classic fantasy hero's journey, not in the sense of, let's say, the advertisements might make you believe.
Hmm.
It's not a Lord of the Rings. This is not a Game of Thrones. This is something that's a lot more challenging, a lot really in depth, something that there's no third act exposition dump here. I love the way that David Lowery trusts the audience with uncovering this story and uncovering everything that is presented.
Hmm.
We're going to delve in on this later, but one of the main reasons to see this performance is number one, Dev Patel, who
Yes.
is always fantastic in many lead roles, but this is the first time he's really been back in like a hero fantasy type role.
Hmm.
And he is magnificent. Every scene he takes away, he chews it up and makes the entire world his own.
Yeah.
Delving into someone who was honestly an unlikely hero, given his character narrative and the entire character arc that he goes through and the way that he treats other people. Simply a fantastic performance, as well as the rest of the supporting
Yeah.
cast all do a great job. And that's something we'll go into. The cinematography, what can we say about that? Is it's just gorgeous. It's like a
Yeah.
moving painting is the best way
Yes.
that I can describe it.
But every single scene, every single, setting that this film has is just like incredibly varied and incredibly vibrant. There's so much imagination injected into every single setting. And the imagery that this film uses and evokes is
Mhm.
magical, and it's fantastic. I think this is, quite honestly, a I would love if we get a revival of fantasy like this, because we had a fantasy revival with stuff like, Lord of the Rings was huge in its time, and our Game of Thrones was obviously our huge fantasy revival for the modern decade, really.
Mhm.
But I really hope that this is indicative of the kind of fantasy that we will be getting, where, the director, the creators trust the audience, like you said, with not giving us a stock standard paint by numbers fantasy world. We get something a little more patient, and that challenges the audience a bit more. And I think you were absolutely right when you said it does challenge the audience.
Absolutely. Kind of what I talked about in my own little written up review I did for my own Letterboxd account.
Hmm.
You can follow me at Wainwright.
Yeah, there
But
you go.
one thing that I talked about there is it's definitely a slow paced movie. The length is about 122 minutes, and you
Hmm.
will definitely feel that time, but it doesn't move at a lethargic pace.
No.
Rather, it's more contemplative, it's
Yes.
meditative on the way that it's designed. And that just left me completely spellbound by everything that was present on screen
Hmm.
because it is even as someone that read the poem and was a little bit familiar with some Arthurian legend stuff, even back when my mom used to read me the stories of King Arthur and stuff as a kid, it is not, the plot doesn't move in a way that is predictable at all.
Yeah.
You will
Yeah.
not be expecting the next thing, even if you know the ending of the Green Knight in the plot in the poem that it's based on. Um, so defying audience expectations in a way that isn't like, let's say, just throwing anything at the screen saying you didn't expect me to do that, did you?
Hmm.
It all very readily serves the main theme that is the hero's journey.
Yeah.
And anybody can be a hero no matter what, all the wrongs that you've done. There's so much to delve into given the themes of that, given the themes of, let's say, even the deconstruction of classic masculinity,
Yeah.
why greatness when goodness is good enough. There's just so much to delve into in that aspect. And I think one of the ways that that's presented really well is the script.
Yeah, sure.
Um, it's not a necessarily meaty, it's not a super meaty script where we're doing long Oscar, like it's not a marriage story where it's ruled by words,
Yeah, yeah.
but rather the things that I love is how it lets the words do the talking when they need to and the imagery do the talking when it has to,
Yes.
especially with some fantastic scenes. I mean, we're I mean, not even spoiling, just from the stuff you see from the trailer, just as fantastic as the giants that are
Yeah.
walking along that gray background. It is just as magnificent in the movie as it is in that trailer. Kind of, you maybe you could talk about yourself. What was some of the plots where you really were just spellbound by the narrative, whether that be with like the writing or just the visuals that were at hand?
My favorite part, and I should say, Joe, I know you've never been on the show before, but we do
Mhm.
do full spoilers here. In case the audience also didn't know, we're doing full spoilers. So I'm gonna nail down my favorite part of the film,
Okay.
and this also tie into a tiny slight issue that I have with it, or
Mhm.
something that I wish it had done. Maybe not an issue with the film itself, is that ending montage when we're sort of going through Gaiwan's, we learned that it is his, his maybe his final moments, his projecting into the future, like, what will my life be if I run away from this moment? If I run away from the fulfillment of this promise that I made, this, if I be dishonorable in this moment, what will my life be like? That was my favorite part of the film because
Mhm.
it really nailed home, or yeah, it brought home the idea of this failed character arc. Because as you said, we see Gaiwan fail multiple times. The trials that he comes up against, maybe with who's the dead woman that her
Yes,
head
it's
is
the
in the
dead
lake.
woman who really isn't. I don't remember the movie her given a name, but
Hang on, I
um,
got it here. Winifred.
yeah, Winifred.
When he succeeds with Winifred, but when he gets to that house with the Joel Edgerton and second Alicia Vikander character, he fails there. I mean, if you think
Mhm.
about it, and that moment where he comes up against the Green Knight finally, that's where he has to confront this idea of failure. Do I continue to live in my failure, or do I at least try to strive to bring my character arc back? And I think that's great.
Mhm.
Uh, and I honestly do kind of wish that maybe it ended, that we did see his life play out, and that's where the movie ends when he's an old king and he gets beheaded by the incoming army. Because I think that idea of a failed character arc is so interesting to put to film.
Hmm. That is interesting as well because that was another one of my favorite parts of the movie, the
Yes.
entire section. There's a lot of parts, it kind of ties into the theme of circles that are super present in this film. Honestly,
Hmm.
if you watch it, take a look at not only the amount of circular objects that are there, what they represent, but also the way the character moves.
Hmm.
There's many times in which Gawain sees his own demise, even from the beginning, where he fails in the test of generosity with the cold indifference towards the young man who gives him the directions to the Green Chapel,
Hmm.
who he has to beg for his life to even get just a single coin from
Hmm.
him. And after he, whether right or wrong, doesn't really matter, he gets jumped by him and his other lackeys.
Hmm.
He envisions himself dead, cold, literally turning to a skeleton on the ground as
Hmm.
the camera goes a clean circle 1 year hence, seeing where
Yes.
he comes from then.
Yeah.
So for that to continue that theme into the end is fantastic. There's also some really great points where they bring up prior themes of the film.
Hmm.
When he's talking to the Lord and the lady specifically, and the lady goes into Alicia Vikander, talks about how he will become green himself.
Mm.
Um, the painting that she makes is there when Gawain is on his throne, and it has completely become green. The
Hmm.
color palette itself has become super marshy and cold. And the way that he just envisions his failure until the point to where he's staring up and you see the roots, you hear the roots happening, and then off with his head, whether
Hmm.
that be the enemy army, the return of the Green Knight, whatever it is offing him.
Hmm.
Um, While you said you to my understanding, you would have liked if it ended there with his head rolling
Yeah,
off at that sequence.
I don't have any issues with how the
Mhm,
film did end because it does resolve and you know he doesn't he's not like this great high fantasy hero. He
mhm,
fails a lot, but then at the end he does the right thing and he fulfills this honorable promise that he made, this oath that he made to, you know, uh uh take on the same injury that he laid down on the Green Knight. And
mhm,
that plays into the theme of like why strive for greatness when goodness is good enough.
mhm.
But yeah, like I said, I don't mind that the film ended there. I think it is still a very very good ending. But in my mind, the idea of ending it on this failed character arc is much more interesting to me personally.
Hmm. And what I really love, again, what we were talking about with that creation of why greatness with goodness is good enough, is still kind of the main point of the original poem. That
Hmm.
it's okay that you make your mistakes. It is okay that you even live a life like Gawain. One of the things I also love, just a brief tangent, is the differences that Lowry makes from the poem. In the
Hmm.
poem, Gawain has a little bit of cred to his name.
Sure.
He's not a full-on knight yet, but he has pretty well respected in the entire in all of King Arthur's land. In this movie, he's a jackass. Let's just
Yeah.
put it straight
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
He's a ladies' man. He lies about going to church when religion is obviously really important to his mother
Hmm.
and everyone that surrounds him. He really is. He's very sexually motivated. Let's say that for
Yes.
sure. He is so deathly afraid of commitment, whether it be professing his love to Alicia Vikander back at home,
Hmm.
or even being sure and being beheaded by the Green Knight. Um, but his journey throughout the entire way and through all of his failures. Um, and one of the things I want to talk about his failures was that I was reading just some interesting descriptions and some other people's thoughts on it. There was a
Mm.
fantastic Reddit comment in the r slash movies official discussion about the Green Knight
Yeah.
and the way that Sir Gawain fails. If we see in the beginning, he's given a shield with a 5-pointed star on it. And
Mhm.
those 5 points all indicate the 5 chivalric virtues of
Sure. Yeah.
friendship, generosity, chastity, courtesy, and piety. And he fails all of them
See, yeah,
until the very end.
exactly. And that's what I love is that from the trailers, we were to understand that this is a film about honor. And it is
Mhm.
a, you know, it is, well, he himself is a knight. He's not the Green Knight, but, uh, and just the idea of this guy who fails on every front of what we as modern audiences and in medieval times, what they thought a knight should be, and this honorable person, that's a fantastic flipping of the fantasy genre on its head. And again, he does it. He's not like this fantastic knight at the end. He just makes the right call and gets beheaded off with
Mhm.
your head. And I think that
Fantastic final line.
exactly,
Fantastic.
it's great.
Now,
Uh,
one thing that I do want to say is that I like that they, because in the original poem, he um leaves scot free when the Green Knight says off with your
really?
head. He just gives him a scratch on
Oh,
the neck,
really?
because in the poem it was all King Arthur's doing, because King Arthur wanted to
Oh,
see if Gawain was really about that life, if he
sure.
was really going to be a good knight.
Hmm.
And I love the way the film does it and leaves it a little bit open ended, because honestly there's an argument to be made whether, like Tanner said, if he was beheaded or if the Green Knight spared him.
Mm,
um Leaving that up to the audience interpretation, I think, is wonderful, and that will definitely let the film have a specific angle for no matter what you're looking at.
sure.
um just a really fantastic ending, even with the tongue-in-cheek off with your head.
Yeah, yeah.
um so those are some things that again we really really loved about the movie.
Hmm.
Some other scenes that I really like, what I was talking about before, is how the environment kind of speaks for itself, and what you were talking about previously with a return for fantasy.
Yes.
And what I specifically love about this movie is its commitment to dark fantasy and gothic architecture.
Yes.
Even the little bit that we see of King Arthur's castle, the little bit that we see in the character designs of everybody, we can tell even King Arthur himself is not doing well in
Right.
this movie.
He's sickly. Everyone is like they have bags under their eyes. They're very gaunt. It's great,
Mhm.
except for maybe like the Lord and the Lady that we see at the end. But I view them more as like these. they are like magically imbued. They are like a test for Gaiwan. They are maybe not entirely human. But yeah,
Yeah.
every human character that we see looks like they actually exist in the 14th century or whatever, where like they at a moment's notice they could drop dead from pneumonia.
Literally, you don't see many old people, and the only
No.
old people you really see are people who are in high stature and high
Yes.
class. um while obviously, obviously there's no Green Knight in real life who
Hmm.
exists and all that. What I
Yes.
really love is listening to Lowry's. I listened to a couple of Lowry's interviews when he talked
Sure.
about his influences for the movie, and one of his biggest influence, he said, was the Sofia Coppola film Marie Antoinette.
Okay.
And what he loved about that is that, although obviously there's some very historically inaccurate stuff, there's a couple scenes where the characters are wearing Chuck Taylors. They all speak in their normal accents.
Right.
Kirsten Dunst speaks an American accent. They all keep their natural tone. Even though those are different, it's still emotionally true to the narrative of
Hmm.
Marie Antoinette. Just like the Green Knight, no matter how many interpretations, whether it be literature or in film that we've seen of it, it all rings emotionally true. They're just fantastic. And other bits of the narrative, even talk about some other influences I love, is how it wears its influences on its sleeve,
Hmm.
but makes it its own unique product. There's a lot of the Gothic architecture you could probably even see from Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. There's
Sure.
a
Yeah.
ton of that type of imagery in there. Even when Lowry was talking about his inspiration for the film was from the classic Willow movie.
Yes.
He got the inspiration for it by grabbing his old Willow action figures and just playing around and being like, huh, I could make my own night movie. That would be kind of cool, wouldn't it?
Hmm.
It takes his favorite parts from those, but makes it a product that's wholly unique and just honestly a spectacular time if you give it the opportunity to present itself.
Yeah, I mean, there are sections of this film, maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes that go without dialogue, and you
Mm-hmm.
just really have to be okay with the film speaking for itself. Looking at maybe some audience reception, I believe this currently has like a 58% on Rotten Tomatoes.
50, it's the same thing. I was looking at it in the car before I even came
Yeah.
in to record this, and it went to 59%. But
Oh,
yeah, it's
good.
very
Okay, it's
low.
ticking up. Like it's
It's
ticking
ticking up
up.
a little bit.
But yeah, I think maybe it's the fault of the marketing team. I from the trailers, it is sold as like this more high octane, high fantasy thing more than
Mm-hmm.
an A24 artsy fantasy thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you should maybe know that before going into this film, whether you'll be interested in that or not. But I just think
Mm-hmm.
it is a fantastic take on the fantasy genre.
Absolutely. And again, like we've stated before, while what I like about it is that it is an A24 film, but while A24 movies, while still very highly regarded, has been pigeonholed by a lot of critics for kind of falling under the same blend of genre, whether that be like an indie alternative melancholia, is kind
Yeah,
of how I describe it.
yeah,
I would say The Grey Knight is definitely one of the studio's most ambitious films,
absolutely.
given that it's a lot of A24 films concern modern time and issues that a lot of people face every day. Talk
Yes.
about the distribution of Ladybird, a lot of people can connect to that.
Hmm.
Even just the entire of all of Uncut Gems, most of us have lived through the time in that early 2010s where it becomes almost a period piece.
Right.
The dialogue and everything presented in The Green Knight is, while still is under that realm of indie and a bit of melancholia and alternative angle to it,
Hmm.
it's not something that the studio has released before.
No.
Um, it's not a crowd pleaser, but I guarantee there's so much to delve into here. There's so
Yeah.
much we could go into for even more time. But it is something that I think is worth seeing, and worth seeing in theaters, especially just to get a grand scope of the fantastic
Yes.
cinematography that is at hand. For me personally, this is right now, between this and the what I love, the fantastic Nicolas Cage movie Pig,
Hmm.
is those are my two favorite movies of
Yeah,
2021.
this is also my number two of the year, and this
Mhm.
is that is having only seen it a handful of days ago. It could very easily rise to that number one spot given more time. And you're right, Joe. We could really analyze any and every aspect of this film, but I
Mhm.
think for time's sake, we've given our broad general thoughts. We've applauded the performances and the imagery, the cinematography, the just everything about this film. But one more thing I feel like should be acknowledged is in terms of what this means to the larger fantasy genre.
Mhm.
is its diversity.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Obviously you get Dev Patel in the lead, but you also get I mean, you acknowledged the masculinity aspect,
Mhm.
and this is again another spoilers thing, but we do see Dev Patel and Joel Edgerton share an on-screen kiss,
Yeah.
and I could feel some people in the theater with us, pull back from that a little bit. Maybe some people who were sitting next to us, some strangers, but I think what this film. Sorry, I completely forgot.
It's
Also,
all good.
Dev Patel's mother, and some of
Mhm.
her fellow. She's a witch. We didn't even talk about that aspect of the
Oh,
film.
yeah.
Uh, but
Kind of
yeah,
I can kind of go into what you're saying first with the kiss with
yes,
Joel Edgerton. That's part of the poem from
okay, yeah,
1400. It is, in fact, even more in depth when listening to Lowry's interview. His original cut of this movie was 2 hours, 45 minutes.
okay,
Almost 43 minutes of this movie was cut from the time where Dev Patel Gawain is with the Lord and the Lady.
really,
Um,
okay,
because through that course, he spends 3 days with them. And in
okay,
the original poem, obviously the tale is whatever the Lord gives in meat and food, Gawain should give to him what he
yes,
receives. And in the original poem, and even in the movie, he interprets it as sexual in
yeah,
favor or romantic,
yes,
where he gets in the poem, he gets one kiss from the lady the first day, so he kisses the Lord the first day, then
yeah,
2 kisses, then gives the Lord 2 kisses, then 3 kisses, gives him
hmm
3 kisses. This is all part of the poem, so this isn't something to where it feels
This
natural part of the
isn't
poem.
this isn't
Yeah,
SJW shoving their agenda down your throat.
what the stupid people beside us, I'm going to be honest, what they said
Yeah,
about this. It's part of the poem and it explores
yes,
Godwin's own bisexuality and his own
yes,
sexuality and how he's still young and growing up through this entire thing. And what you're talking about with Dev Patel, and I don't mean to interrupt you because I
no,
know
it's
you have
okay.
a lot
Go
of
for
great
it.
things to say. You don't get to see an Indian action hero in an American movie
No,
very often. And I know
let alone a European fantasy film.
like every single person, it would be so easy if this was an incredibly white cast,
Yeah,
if they just did that, and if they shoved whoever is, if they shoved like Timothée Chalamet, who's a great
yeah,
actor, but if they
yeah,
shoved him in the role. But presenting the story through the lens of someone who is of, I mean, just not a white person is just a
yeah.
great thing to see.
And that fits into, like I said about his mother being a witch. Someone yells that at him derogatorily
Mm-hmm.
at one point. You kind of feel that he is this outsider in when compared to the rest of the Knights of the Round Table. And
Mm-hmm.
his race plays a part in that, but it should be acknowledged. Dev Patel is I can't honestly picture anyone else in this role.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly cannot. Um,
Exactly.
what I was going to say about the kiss though is that maybe if this movie was made 10 years ago, we wouldn't have gotten that. It wouldn't have been
Mm-hmm.
in the film, despite the fact that it was in the poem. And even, maybe some same-sex stuff we got on like Game of Thrones feels more, it feels a little bit more, oh, isn't it risque that we're doing this? Look, we're doing, oh, look, we have naked people on the
It's
screen and
sex scenes for the sake of sex scenes. It
exactly. But this feels genuine. It feels
Mhm.
genuine to the fantasy genre and being correct and accurate to the poem it was based upon.
Yeah. Look, all I can say is it that even though it delves into the best part of like modern filmmaking with the way that the cinematography is,
Hmm.
and just the way that honestly, for such a low budget, the CGI for the fox and for the
Yeah,
giants are
very good.
wonderful. Felt great at home in there. Takes the
Yes.
best part of modern elements while also mixing in the perfect amount of mythology that's needed in
Yeah,
place to make it something that I honestly think will be analyzed, will be looked at for a long period of time.
I
And I
believe
think
so.
it's definitely one of the defining dark fantasy epics that we've had in quite a long time.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah.
I definitely see myself rewatching this maybe before the end of the year if it to
Mhm,
see if it rises to that number one spot. But Joe, I
mhm.
think you are absolutely correct in saying this will probably be the maybe one of the most iconic films of this decade for sure.
Mm-hmm. I wholly believe in that.
Yeah.
Just because, like we talked about at, at an extensive amount of time talking about this beforehand,
Mhm.
it's themes that anybody can latch onto,
Mhm.
and a story that you have to delve into and look into to get that meaning. It is
Yes.
embracing its mythology and wearing it right on its sleeve.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that a film like this was able to get a big studio release and able to be in theaters.
Yes.
And I truly believe, look, again, like we said before, it's not Lord of the Rings, it's not Game of Thrones, it's not even the Guy Ritchie King Arthur movie that was
Oh
released a
yeah.
couple years ago.
Oh
Complete
Lord.
opposite, complete opposite of that.
Yes. Yes.
It is meditative, it's at times challenging, and it will
Mhm.
challenge you. But that's my favorite part of art, is
Yes.
that it challenges your expectations no matter how much you know about the source material going in. For me, I gave it, I don't know how much ratings matter to you. For me,
Yep.
I gave it a 4.5 out of 5.
Mhm.
Finale probably willing to go up in the end. My little bit of complaints are honestly not even worth mentioning.
Sure.
There's honestly just a little bit of like editing that I was kind of questioning.
Well,
sometimes some crossfades can be a little bit weird,
yeah.
but it's such a minor worry.
The thing you said about him spending more time with the Lord and the Lady in the castle, that is my thing. I'm like, did he spend like a full 3 days there? According to you and like David Lowery in interviews, he did. So I'll probably pick this up on Blu-ray, watch those deleted scenes, but we shall see. Joe, thank you so much for joining me on this review of The Green Knight.
Yeah.
Audience, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more movie criticism just like this. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Have a good day.